Morning, everybody. It is 8:16 a.m. Little later start. Welcome to my channel. This market proves to be volatile, proves to be crazy, large swings, and the big day we had, we're just trading inside that big day. That's no surprise, just because that move was so large. Today we have bank earnings, we have PPI. Okay. Next week we have a shortened week with Good Friday, and earnings season has basically started. So this should be interesting, and let's get right into it. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. I use market profile, volume profile to find structure in the markets, along with supply and demand, gamma exposure levels, the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. That is my edge. It's how I look at the markets and construct data in that way. Very easy for me to see and look at the market. All right. Hopefully, you guys can join me every morning. I give you the story of the market news, the economic calendar, the leaders and the laggards, the overall story of the markets, and of course, I give you that long and short trade scenarios, as long as we go over the daily charts and the bond market, and the dollar, and the VIX. I do that every day. All right, and hopefully, you enjoy it and you smash the like button. That would be much appreciated. Now, let's get right into the watch list here and see what's moving markets. And we got a VIX. VIX is up 3.56%. We're at 42 VIX. 42 VIX. All right, we got PPI coming out at 8:30. Bitcoin's up 3.21. Ether's up 3.1. Silver's up 2%. Gold's up 1.77%. 10-year yield is up 1.12%. Nasdaq's up 0.39. ES is up 0.38. The Dow's up 0.25. Crude's up 0.27. It's moving around on me. The dollar is underneath $100. That is significant. Okay. Russell is down 0.14 and 30-year bonds being sold. Looking at the Max 7 here. Who's leading the pack today? That would be your Bitcoin. Your coin, your proxy for Bitcoin's up 1.70%. Nvidia's up 1.2%. AMD up 0.86. All right. Now, who's your little laggard? Apple's down 0.12 and Tesla's down 0.27. Not much of a laggard there. Moving on to the sectors. Who's your leader? Semiconductors are your leader, up 0.74, followed by financials. Financials moving on here. They're up 0.39. Energy's up 0.40. Basic materials is up. Technology up 0.38. A lot of stuff moving around on me here. And then we don't have any laggards. We just have flat industrials, utilities, and real estate. All right, but the current market structure we're in, it's very indecisive. We are going to break out of this, and it's going to be a big move. It's just we're inside that big day. We're inside yesterday's session right now in the overnight. So you don't want to be in the middle of that. You're going to get it chopped up. Okay? All right. I think it's time to move on to the economic calendar now. Let's do that. All right. So we have Fed Kashkari is currently speaking. Okay. I can see some alerts coming in from what he's saying. We have PPI. All right. Let's make this a 1 star so we can see what we're expecting here. So core PPI consensus is 3.6. Previous report, they're expecting it to go up. Interesting. And yesterday, CPI headline and core went down. They're expecting PPI to go up. I'm assuming because of tariffs. That would make sense. The year-over-year number, the headline PPI, expected to go up 4.1 from previous 3.2. Okay. Now we have Fed Collins speaking at 9 a.m. So Fed speak today. And then we have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment at 10 a.m. right with Fed Muslim speech. And then you have the inflation expectations, consumer expectations, current conditions, and basically Michigan Consumer Sentiment at 10 a.m. I'm probably going to wait. That's a market mover. That's been moving the markets lately. Just very interested. Now, it looks like consensus is 54.5. We were 57 prior. So, consumer is not looking at our markets too brightly. All right. Got Fed Williams at 11. That tops it off. Let's go to earnings. Who do we have this morning before the open? JP Morgan reported. Okay. BlackRock, Wells Fargo, Bank of New York, Morgan Stanley. I don't know who that is. Fastenal. But basically, some big, obviously, BlackRock, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of New York, and Morgan Stanley all reported. Okay. Let's see here what Morgan Stanley did. What am I not seeing them for? Oh, here we are. I mean, they're not really doing much, so we'll look into that. Besides that, let's get into some news here. Let's just see here. Maybe we're just, there we go. All right, let's talk about it. JP Morgan stock rose 2% after the investment bank giant reported first quarter earnings that exceeded expectations and stronger than expected revenue. But Jamie Dimon struck a note of caution on the broader economy. Morgan Stanley gained 1.5%. Now, they don't, they're not up as much as this previous, so they lost some of this steam here, both of those. Let's see here. We could probably hover over it. Yeah, see, up only 0.35 right now. Stock gained 1.5% after the investment bank topped quarterly earnings on the back of stable income from investment banking and wealth management. Wells Fargo stock rose 1.4. Let's see where they're at now. See, they're only 0.67. After the lender reported mixed first quarter results, beating earnings expectations but falling short on revenue as higher interest rates affect the business. BlackRock stock rose 1.3%. Let's see where they're at now. 0.49. See, they all paired their wins here, or their gains. After the world's largest money managers' assets under management increased to a record high in the first quarter, but the firms posted a 4% decline in profit amid volatility in the financial markets. Bank of New York Mellon stock rose 2.5% after the lender reported a 17% jump in first quarter profits. Managers higher assets under custody that boosted its fee income. Let's see where they're at now too. They are down right now. Interesting. Apple stock rose 0.2. Well, we know they're down, bouncing back after losses of over 12% over the course of the last month as the China-U.S. trade war escalates. Yeah, they're down now. Tesla stock fell 0.4 after the EV manufacturer on Friday appeared to have suspended taking new orders for its imported Model S and Model X on its China website. Okay. Verizon stock rose 1% after Evercore ISI upgraded its stance on the telecom giant to outperform from inline, citing its defensive characteristic, domestic skew, and relatively limited exposure to tariffs. Yeah, so that's keeping its gains. American Express stock rose 0.7 after the Bank of America lifted its stance on the credit card giant to buy from neutral, saying the current downtick offers an opportunity to buy a high-quality company at reasonable valuation. Yeah, it's almost up 1%. All right, let's look at some news. It says China hits back at Trump's tariff hike. Turmoil rings recession alarm. Beijing increased its tariffs on U.S. imports to 125%, hitting back against U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to hike duties on Chinese goods to 145 in raising the stakes in a trade war that threatens to end up global supply chains. We talked about all these. All right, U.S. chip makers outsourcing manufacturing will escape China tariffs. All right, that's probably why semis are up. U.S. chip makers which outsource manufacturing will be exempt from China's retaliatory tariffs on U.S. imports, according to a notice by the main Chinese Semiconductor Association. All right, let's look at what the dollar is going on here. All right, usually it talks about, okay, here we go. Let's just read this. Wall Street futures inched up choppy trading as investors assess earnings reports from major U.S. banks in the latest escalation in the ongoing trade war. The brief lift in sentiment earlier in this week following President Donald Trump's decision to delay tariffs has faded quickly, with China hiking duties on U.S. goods to as much as 125%. The dollar continued to tumble, hitting its lowest in a decade against the Swiss franc. Elsewhere, European markets were in the red, while Japan's Nikkei plunged nearly 5%, capping off a highly volatile week. In contrast, Hong Kong and China stocks recovered from their earlier losses, buoyed by a rally in semiconductor shares and possible state-backed buying. Gold climbed past the significant 3,200 level, while oil prices ticked higher. Investors are also awaiting data for March producer prices, which is coming out in 4 minutes. All right, let's see if anything. I kind of talked about a lot of stuff already. Let's see. AIG, Jeffrey raises his target price to 95 from 90, expecting the company to post fast earnings. Then we got Nike. Piper Center cuts target price to 70 from 90, driven by macro volatility and the potential for prolonged uncertainty. All right, now does Juice have anything for us today? Dollar fell in concerns that its standing on the world's reserve currencies deteriorating as the U.S.-China trade war escalates. Gold surged and the euro reached a 3-year high. Okay, we already know that. Looks like Kremlin, no breakthrough seen from Witkoff's visit. Just want to see if Ed Kashkari said anything. There's nothing in red, so we're going to move on. All right. Let's move on. We got 2 minutes. Let's look at daily charts here. And then we'll just look at the morning chief. We'll just look at the drop for PPI, which I don't really expect craziness unless there's a big beat or miss. This market is insane. I mean, look at these candles. Look at these candles. That is crazy. And look at like back here. It's unbelievable. Okay. So, what did we do yesterday? We opened here, hit the 90 EMA daily. That's that yellow. And then we proceeded to fall, taking back a lot of the gains, and then got bought up. Basically closing pretty much close to the mid of the session. 527.30 we're at right now. 527.30. We are at the top third of yesterday's session. Okay, let's look at futures. Give us a little view. Yeah, see, we're in the middle. It's just not a good place to be. Let's look at those Qs before the numbers drop. So, same thing. Look, Qs actually went above almost the last month's lows, and then went down, of course. Closed here, where we at now, 448.30. Let's call it 448.30. Upper third of yesterday's session. Let's look at futures. Yeah, you can see we're just not in a good area. Inside, right? Inside. That's just like, we're gonna make a big move, but it's just we want to get chopped up. You're gonna get chopped up in this environment. Okay. Let's go right to the hourly chart here. Let's see what PPI does. News just dropped. Do we see anything here? Let's go to the results as they roll in. There we go. Let's see what we have here. Core PPI year over year. Expected 3.6. It went down 0.3. It went down 0.1 from previously. Okay. Then we have year over year. We expected 3.3 and it was actually 2.7. Wow. Now the market really is not doing much. You can see. But we're really compressing here price. You can see here if I put really wedging here and we're compressing. really compressing here. You can just see you got that wedge forming, and we're getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and we're eventually going to move up or down. Okay, we're not like moving really in a balanced area. A little bit, but mainly we're just compressing, compressing, compressing. Okay, but this isn't really doing much. And if we look at this chart, I have an anchored VWAP from this high, and you can see it kind of like it caused resistance, resistance, right? Now it's flat. That's telling you we're in a range bound market, right? And now from these lows, anchored VWAP here, you could see it's flat. And then right in the middle, you have an anchored VWAP from the month, flat. So it's telling us we're basically just chopping, okay? Until we break out of this. When does that happen? Don't know. Today is Friday. We'll have to see what happens. But 3 anchored VWAPs flat. I mean, I don't need those to tell me that, but these just confirm we're moving sideways. We're not doing much. After this big move, we're just compressing price. And let's just see what happens. I mean, this is a nothing burger really. So we can move on. We're going to move right on to the triple headed monster. Let's go back here. Let's see what the bond market dollar did with this price move here. So look at this 10-year yield. This is unbelievable here. Look at this 10-year yield. It went all the way of a low of 3.84 yield. We're back at 4.42 yield. It just ripped all the way back up to where the anchored VWAP of this year. Now we're having a doji candle. We're above the 200-day, the 20-day, the 90 MA daily, the 50-day. So this is kind of crazy. Okay. Now some people are saying it's because China's selling treasuries. I don't know. Right? Now that can affect it in the short term, but on a long term, who knows? But that's a pretty crazy move. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the dollar. Dollar is tanking. Look at that dollar. Man, it hit 99. Here's that support all the way back here. It broke that support. Okay, that's a weak dollar. Look at that. You broke this swing low here. Broke this consolidation low here. Look at this here. We haven't been there. Wow, look at that. This was back in 2023. We're below. We broke below that. We broke below back in 2022. So let's just see. Let's go out. Let's just go out 10 years. Okay. So we haven't been down here or breaking that low or be around this price since 2022. So very interesting. Very interesting. So this is meaning our dollar is getting weak. Generally, that's good for equities, but it's not very good to be the world reserve currency and you're losing your power. Okay. Moving on to the VIX. Okay, that VIX, we're at 40.84, holding this crazy environment and crazy volatility. This is telling us the market is very uncertain of what's going on, and it has every right to be that way. It's just so uncertain. You don't know what Trump's going to do. You don't know what China's going to do. It's very uncertain. Markets don't know how to price this in. Okay. All right, we're going to go to the market profile, volume profile. Let's move on here. Like I said, we're coiling up in that wedge, so Let's see. Let's move on here. Let me just change my workspace. We're going to move over to the ES. Let me get my marker out. Alrighty. And this would be our marker profile, volume profile analysis here. Okay. Let's see what we did yesterday. Alright, so yesterday there was a consolidation under this overnight low and we broke that, right? And let's see, so we opened up right here. We pushed up a little bit, came down, pulled back, and then we really ripped into these single prints all the way to the week to date VWAP. That's where we found support, right at the week to date VWAP. Okay, single prints were cleaned all the way to there. We didn't take it all out, and then we got bought back up, and then kind of like pushed down and pushed up into the close right here. Okay, but look at this range from that day of big gains, right? We're in the middle of that range. We still are, right? And it's a big range. So, however, you got to look at where we are now. Here's yesterday's highs, yesterday's lows. Here's the overnight high and the overnight low. We're inside yesterday's session right now. Okay. Remember, like I said, look, you can see it in the market profiles. Look at this low. It's compressing, right? And then you can see these lows compressing. Okay. Move's going to happen. Okay. You can see the supply, whenever the supply and demand is very close, you can see we're just compressing. Okay. We'll just have to see what happens here. Okay. Now, really, it's going to be all about these edges here. Overnight low to yesterday's lows. This supply zone, which encompasses overnight highs and yesterday's highs. Okay. So we're really looking at. So that's your 53. I'm going to say around 5,400. This in this general area. This is about 5,200. So that's basically the general area. Okay. And so inside this area is pretty much going to be noise. Okay. So with that being said, what should we look for today? Now, it doesn't mean we break out today. We could even move sideways more. And it just means that the move is going to be bigger and bigger. Okay. So let's get right into the scenarios here. There's really not much. It's not too complicated today. Does it make it easy to trade it? No. But structure-wise, really not that hard. Okay, so let's look at the long. Now you do have demand here. Now remember, we do have that wedge. Okay. So what I would like to see, you're going to get an inside-out move. You're in the middle of this area, right? So if we do pull back into this demand, right? That's that wedge edge. Okay. You really have to see if we come down into here. That could be the move up. And continue the wedge and see if you can break out. Next move would be down into this area. Okay, maybe you hit the week today VWAP, you hit yesterday's lows, and we go back up as well. Okay, and you break this around, that 5,400. But then you got more supply up here, and you got still unfilled gap above us. All right. Now, as far as the shorts, okay, price is here. We can hit the outside of that wedge into this supply, fall down, break the wedge here, right? Then you got to contend with this week to day VWAP. Now, if you break this, you go back to the most traded price of the week, 5100, and you possibly test that the lows from that big day. You break that, you could possibly go lower to maybe do 4900. Okay. You also can push up into this area and maybe come back into here into the middle. All right. So that's your short and your longs for the ES. Now we're going to look at the NASDAQ together. You can see the same thing in the NASDAQ, same price structure. Okay, you got that wedge, just like here. Okay, compressing price action. All right, so we're talking about, 188, this demand. We got the overnight lows and yesterday's lows, and the week to day VWAP in single prints below. So it's going to be the same deal here. Okay, same deal. Who can break out of that wedge, or who can get bought at the support in the resistance, basically. Let's look at scenarios. Okay, like I said, this is going to be pretty quick because it's not really that complicated. It's just don't get caught up in this noise, because in the middle of this big session, in the middle of yesterday's session, right, this is very indecisive in here. Flat VWAPs, just reiterating that. Okay, let's go over to the long side, right, for longs, for bulls. All right, so now we can possibly push into this demand, break out of that wedge, and really try to work through the supply, but you still got the most traded price of the rolling year right here. If you can tap that, you could possibly go up to the most traded price of the month. That would be 198.50. This will not be easy to break through. This would be very bullish if that happened. Okay, and that was pulling into this demand, breaking out of that wedge, right? Now you could also come down month to date VWAP, probably touch that trend of that wedge, maybe even, oh, sorry, it's not what I wanted to draw. Come down here and push up as well. All right, could be a bear trap here if you come back here and you move up, right? There's always a chance to go down a little lower and balance off. Okay, now on the short side, it's the same. All right, it's the same. Price can come up, hit this supply, come in here, break that wedge, start moving down here into this area. This could get really weak, clean the rest of these single prints, go down to the most traded price of the week. That's 175.17. You break that, you're going to test the lows from that big day. You take that out, you possibly can go down to 168. Okay, and there's a lot of supply here, so we could easily try to get a bull trap here and just wind up bouncing in the middle of this session into Friday. All right, remember it's Friday, so that's your scenarios for today. Hopefully you enjoyed that analysis. Give me a thumbs up or a like. That'd be much appreciated. Now, I do this every morning, and hopefully you can come join me. Give you the market story, the leaders and the laggards, the market news, the economic calendar. All right. We talk about the long and short scenarios that I just gave you for both the ES and NASDAQ. And I gave you a plan. All right. Now this market's nuts, so you really got to concentrate on big levels and widen your stops and use less risk. Well, relative risk, right? So today I'm probably making a conscious effort, because futures are hard to set the risk. because it's so volatile. Now, futures are contracts, so you don't have as much. You can't really zero in your risk like you can on shares. So I know I'm gonna go back to trading like SPY and QQQ shares. So I was doing SPX. The gamma is so crazy in that. Don't get me wrong, you could still do good, but shares is definitely where I'm gonna go back to. It's just because I can zero my risk to the penny. There is no like, oh my God, I only could do one contract here. I can do my risk to the penny. So that's what I'm gonna be doing until this volatility comes down. All right, that's my plan. Everybody, we got our plan. Stay green, no trades to trade, and I will see everybody on Monday. So everybody have a great weekend, okay?